Old School RuneScape is having Group Ironman mode released on October 6th, and here are the 5 most important factors when considering new players for your Group Ironman mode. Number 1. Figure out what you want to achieve in-game. Would you like to go toe-to-toe with other top groups, or is it okay to enjoy the journey and just not really worry too much about what everyone else is up to? If you've played an Ironman and still have a lot of interest in the mode, what will be different to keep you from just going back to your normal Ironman character versus your group character? While there is nothing wrong with playing multiple accounts, players will eventually have to make a choice on which account they inevitably choose to do more intensive activities on. For example, you're probably not going to be able to do Corrupted Gauntlet on both your Ironman and your group Ironman account at the same time. Just make sure that you know your other group members' priorities and that your priorities are in line with those, because it's going to cause problems in the long run if you don't really plan to play the game mode as seriously as the other people you're playing with. Number 2. Be cautious when choosing to attempt the hardcore group Ironman mode. It's perfectly fine to see how far along your group can get with its lives, but going back to tip number 1, make sure your group all sees the hardcore status the same way that you do. You need to keep in mind that as a hardcore Ironman, the symbol will gain more gravity and you will not be willing to lose it the longer you play the game mode. As someone who essentially accidentally maxed a hardcore Ironman, trust me when I say that, it really does happen. If you have no problem losing it and your group members have no problem losing it, that's fine, but make sure you know that early on, and then also posing hypotheticals such as, what if we all make it to maxing? Do we want to still worry about our hardcore symbol? These are all things that should be accounted for. One more thing to consider is that you won't be able to do all of the new content per se right away, because if you're worried about dying, you can't just brute force it sway down. You have to somewhat plan and know what you're getting yourself into. And that's another thing you want to make sure your group understands. New updates might not be good to do right away. I will say that being a hardcore Ironman definitely does feel rewarding when you do certain things that maybe not everyone could do as a hardcore Ironman, but it does come at its cost, so just keep that in mind. I still welcome everyone to try the mode, but be careful. Number 3, if you're dealing with new players that you're not as familiar with, look for people of similar experience in RuneScape to your own, or even more importantly, try and party up with friends or clan mates that you can rely on. I would say it's going to be pretty rare that if you're going for like a 5-man group that you're going to be able to have a full group of friends willing to dedicate that amount of time. So you will want to still look for people of similar experience. What I mean by experience is, while it would be amazing to have a RuneScapian god like Exact or Wooks on your team, it's not really realistic to expect a player of that caliber to be on your team if you aren't able to also play on that level. While I do not encourage anyone to ego out on less experienced players per se, it is definitely something that you need to consider when you are planning to spend thousands of hours with this individual or individuals. So some things I would want to find out about my teammates before going into a new fresh group Ironman would be, what is their total level? Have they played the Ironman mode before, and how far along on the Ironman journey are they? Do they have a lot of in-game PVM experience, like end-game stuff such as TOB, Cox, Inferno, that kind of thing? And also, if you're really, really good, you've probably done the Inferno without a T-bow, which is supposedly an entirely different grind. So those are all things that you'll probably want to find out before dedicating a ton of time, if you have those types of goals in mind. That being said, these things can still be learned down the line. This transitions me into point number 4. Group prestige is not everything in this game mode. For those unaware, there will be a group prestige symbol, which is currently only available on the high scores as of making this video, but they said they might add it to the in-game players. We're not sure yet, but it will allow players to access a separate section of the high scores, much like how hardcore Ironmen compete with normal Ironman accounts, but they also have their own separate high scores. To keep the symbol, you need to have the same members of the group from which you started with, and that means no one joins or leaves. While it could definitely be cool to traverse permanently through this journey with the same players, sometimes it's just not really feasible. Don't stress too hard if you'd like to add a friend to your group, or finally deciding to remove an inactive player. It's a tough decision, but it may be the encouragement your group needs to not burn out. While it's not completely necessary, it's important to have an idea of when people are able to log on the game when adjusting for time zones. Time zones also means that people will have different ping, and while that might not be important at the beginning, eventually when you're doing things like Theater of Blood, it could be very important, so playing with an Australian as someone from Sweden is probably going to be pretty tough. Last but certainly not least, number 5, have fun. While being a cutting-edge player in the new game mode comes with its own bragging rights, it definitely is not the way most people like to play RuneScape. RuneScape is a game where you set your own goals and you have your own pace to it. And I see Group Ironman as that, with a couple of restrictions in the form of Ironman mode, but with the help of some of your fellow friends and players too. That's going to wrap up this video. I hope those long-term viewers really enjoyed the old animations that Kate did for my Super Chocobo World Series. So make sure to check out her socials below if you still haven't followed her. They're really cool, and I'm so thankful to have them. I will say that she is working on something for my new series, as well as I have someone else working on some stuff for that series. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm hoping that it's going to be pretty unique. I don't think anybody has the same idea necessarily that I do, but I don't want to give away too much. I'll have a little teaser video on that in the upcoming days whenever some more art stuff is done. So we're just kind of waiting on that. But thank you again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon with another video.